day, everyone. I hope you're all good and you're all healthy and happy in your individual houses. For today, guys, we will be talking about the sociological perspective of the self. So, you might be asking this question: why do we have to include the sociological perspective in understanding the self? It is actually because the self emerges in our society and it is also reflective of the society. The sociological approach to understanding the self and its part means that we must also understand the society in which the self and its parts means uh, the self, which is a part of the society, and in which the self is also acting. And we have to keep in mind that the self is always acting in a very social complex with with connection or in interaction with the other selves that exist in the same society as well. So as the self interacts with the other selves in a particular society, the self tends to accept their social world with no questions. That is as if it is just nothing but natural. But the sociological perspective will enable the self to see society as a temporary social product, which is actually created by human beings, by ourselves, and that it is also capable of being changed by ourselves as well. So, sociological perspective will help us understand ourselves better, and through that perspectives or through the sociological perspective, we will be able to explain how the relationship between and among the self, the society, and the culture applied in understanding the self. We will also be able to describe and discuss the different ways by which society and culture shape the self based on the different sociological theories. And these theories are the structural functionalism theory, the symbolic interactionism theory, and then the conflict theory. And under the symbolic interaction theory, we will also be talking about the dermatological perspective, the looking glass self theory, and also the labeling theory or also the deviance theory. So those are the different sociological theories that are very much important in discussing the sociological perspective of the self. And lastly, guys, we have to identify which theory best aids us in understanding ourselves, and then we will explain it in the form of an essay. So, to formally start with this lesson, sociological perspective of understanding the self, we will first define what is sociology. Sociology is the study of human social relationships and institutions. So, as you see, with that definition alone, even if it is so short, sociology is the study of social relationships and institutions. But mind you, guys, it is a very diverse subject matter. What makes it diverse? It's because it ranges from crime to religion, it ranges from the family to the state, from the divisions of race to the social classes, and then to the shared beliefs of common culture, from social stability to radical changes to the whole society. So it is very much indeed diverse. And in unifying these diverse subjects of study, it is sociology's purpose of understanding how human action and consciousness both shape and are shaped by our surrounding cultural and social structures. So, according to Theodore Adorno, who is a very famous sociologist and at the same time a philosopher after the World War II, he said, and I quote, the self is entwined with the society. Okay, it owes society its existence in the most literal sense. Okay, so the self is not okay. Not only the self is entwined in society, it owes society its existence in the most literal sense. So, what do you think Adolf, Theodore Adorno means by this particular phrase? The way I see it, I think it means that the self is a relatively stable set of perceptions of who we are in relation to ourselves, to others, and to our social system. So the self is socially construed in the sense that it is shaped through interaction with other people. And so, as with the socialization in general, the individual is not really a passive participant in this process and have a very powerful influence over how this process and its consequences develop. So, to elaborate the details of these processes, we will now discuss the different sociological theories, and we will start with the structural functionalism theory. This theory is contributed by Herbert Spencer, Emil Durkheim, and Alfred Radcliffe Brown, and also there are some ideas from Talcott Parsons. So, the functionalism, also called structural functionalism theory, sees society as a structure with interrelated parts, which is designed to meet the biological and sociological needs of the individuals in the society. Actually, functionalism grew out of the writings of the English philosopher and biologist Herbert Spencer because he saw the similarities between the society and the human body. He said that just as the various parts of the human body work together to keep the body functioning, the same goes with the society. The different parts of the society work together so that the society will keep on functioning. In addition, Emil Durkheim, who is another sociologist who applied Spencer's theory to explain how societies change and survive over time, Durkheim believed that society is a complex system of interrelated and interdependent parts that work together to maintain stability, and that society is held together by our shared values, languages, and symbols. Durkheim believed that to study society, a sociologist must look beyond the individual's social facts, such as the laws, the morals, the values, the religious beliefs, even our customs and fashions and rituals, which all serve to govern our social life. Another output or another perspective from Alfred Radcliffe Brown is that he defined the function of any recurrent activity as part it played in a social life as a whole, and therefore the contribution it makes to social stability and continuity. Also Talcott Parsons, rather, he said that in a healthy society, all parts work together in order to maintain stability, and that particular stability is a state called dynamic equilibrium. So the structural functional approach really sees the society as a complex system with many independent parts that work together to maintain itself. So it's just like the society is a machine and all the different parts are working together to make sure that the society continues to run. Now, if you could imagine a machine, even the bad parts of it are considered to be helping the machine to go. So, okay, let's have a very clear scenario here. Okay, as a visual example, picture a car. Okay, that is a machine, of course. Now, as a car has many parts, and all these parts work. together. Okay, now the wheels, the drive shafts, the engine, all those things, they work together to make sure that the car run. Okay. In the structural functional approach, it sees society as something like that car. All those different parts of the car are just parts of the society and all work together to make sure that the society runs. So what are the different parts of the society that it is referring? It actually is talking about the different institutions in our society. So, what are these institutions? Of course, we have the family as the primary institution of the society. We have our government. We have our educational institution. We have our religious institutions. Okay, and many more. Okay, I know for a fact that you understand what institution is. So, in this perspective, it refers to the institutions as different part of the society and that they work together in order to make the society runs and functions well so that there will be stability and sustainability and so there is this dynamic equilibrium in the society. So there. Now, what do I mean when I said earlier that even bad things, there are things in the society that we maybe don't want at all. Okay, so we don't want it very much, but still it is part. No, it is still a part of that machine that helps the machine move or run. So the same with our society. In our society, there are things that we don't want. We consider it as bad, like crime, like poverty, like homelessness, and of course the corruption in our government. It is definitely bad, but in a structural functional approach, we would argue that even these things that we would label as bad, as really bad, but there are still part of this machine, and they really exist to help make sure that the society continues to run. Okay, so there. So we could not just give away with the poverty. We could not just give away with crimes because basically these are all parts of our society. Now, there are two key important components in understanding the structural functional approach, and that is the social structure and the social function. Again, there are two key components in understanding the structural functional approach, and that is the social structure and also the social function. So, what is basically the difference between a social structure and the social function? So, when we say social structure, guys, it is any repeated routine like pattern of social interaction or behavior. So, this is where we as human beings and being part of that particular society are behaving the same way, and it is saying relatively, so it might change, but they're basically behaving in a similar way, and it is a pattern. So we're doing this over and over. So it might be going to sports events. It might be the social structure of our religion, like going to church, but we do have different churches, okay? Or it could be voting for our different chosen candidates and knowing for a fact that these presidentiables might be that good, but of course, because we have our suffrage, our right to vote, then we will vote as to whoever whom we consider as would help us best to make improvements of our society, or we may choose for a candidate that simply famous. So guys, um, what am I saying here is that there are different patterns, but in a different manner. Okay, but it is done repeatedly over and over again. So that is basically why corruption is a part of our government system, because we keep on voting and electing those very futile and selfish and corrupt government officials. So there are many different social structures as well. So Now let us talk about a social function. So it is the mechanism by which the structures of society are maintained. So it's really the purpose. Why does a social structure exist? Consider that this is a macro level orientation. When we say macro, guys, we're talking here a big perspective, the wider aspect. Okay, so this is actually a macro level orientation. So this approach is looking at the very broad, big, and zoom out issues in our society. So here's an example. Social structure could be our religion, and then social function could be the purpose, and that is the mechanism of why the social structure exists. Or it could be our government. Okay, our social structure could be our government, and the social function is the purpose as to why we have this kind of government. Okay, that of course that is actually existing and functioning within our society. So social function might be to keep the family together. When we talk about the religion, it might be to create a community, a peaceful community. And if we talk about the government as a social structure, its function could be to make sure that our country will be better, and to make sure that our people, okay, the Filipino society will be taken care of, and that its needs will be provided by the government. Okay, so that's the function. I hope you get the idea here, and you could be able to distinguish the social structure and the social function. So um, let us put this way: we argue, okay, as people part of that particular society, we basically disagree about what exactly the social function is of our social structure, but still it keeps on, okay, and it goes on because each and different parts of our society work together in order to keep our society running. So there. Now, Emile Durkheim, as I've mentioned a while ago, is a French sociologist who coined the term social facts. Now, what does it mean by social facts? According to Emile Durkheim, social facts are separate from individual responses. So they might be, how would I say this one? They might be an individual's response, but they really are external from the individuals, so they're coming from somewhere else, and specifically they're coming from social life. So they are pieces of information about social life. So Emil Durkheim was looking for correlations between the social facts in order to reveal the laws of our social structure. Now, if you're exactly following that, let us look at his most famous study. He had this suicide studies, and that is called the anome theory. He described the effects of the social division of labor developing in early industrialism and the rising of suicide rate. So accordingly, Emil Durkheim said, in times of social upheaval, there is this collective consciousness, and it is weakened, and the previous norms and then the moral convictions and the controls dwindle. So Emile Durkheim looked at the records from the police and the death reports in France, specifically looking for the suicide rates. And then he found that men, the Protestants, the wealthy people, the unmarried people were more likely to take their own lives other than other groups of people. So Emil Durkheim hypothesized that the social ties were something that was maybe limiting the people's likelihood to take their own lives, or on the other side of that coin, that freedom was something that was actually a key factor for having people to make the decision to take their own lives. Okay, so it's just like us Filipinos, no? We make decisions, we exercise our free will, we choose our own candidates during elections without basically thinking that it is tantamount to suicide. Like we are putting our entire lives for 6 years into this particular president who will be running our country. No, so that is why we have to be very careful in exercising our vote, because for all we know, all of us, the entire country, the entire Filipino society will be affected with that single vote that we have casted, with our decisions, with our freedom to exercise our right to vote. So there. Going back, so according to Emil Durkheim, the social fact that he was looking, that was suicide, and the data was there, the records was there, and then he's looking and he's making this hypothesis that it's coming from this social ties and also from the freedom that uh, the people have. So to summarize this perspective, there is this two parts of it. The structural functional approach society is a complex system that works together to promote solidarity and stability. And this is a macro level orientation. So it's really zoom out. It is really talking about society as a whole. And there are two important key components of this approach, and that is the social structure. So that is the relatively stable pattern of behavior, and then the social function, which is the mechanism, the very purpose behind why the social structure exists. Then we also talk about the anomaly theory of Emile Durkheim, who is the pioneer of sociology in France, and he did not just coin the term social facts. He's also known for his study about the suicide anomaly theory, wherein he found out that the social ties or the freedom, depending on how you would like to look at it, really determine the likeliness of suicide, and that social facts are these collective things from society that they can be studied to review the loss of our social structure. So that is all about the structural functionalism theory or the structural functionalist perspective. Now let us talk about another sociological theory which will better make us understand ourselves through the sociological perspective, and that is the conflict perspective theory. So the conflict perspective theory is actually an approach that was started by Karl Marx, and you've probably heard of him before. I'm not sure, but he's often credited as the founder of communism, and he was very instrumental in developing the social conflict approach. Karl Marx actually saw the economic class as the biggest conflict facing the world, and this is according to him, there is this specific class conflict because there is this category, or there is this division of classes. There's the bourgeoisie and then the proletariat. Now, the bourgeoisie you can think of as the owners. They are actually the bosses, the owner of the factories, and they are the people that are, of course, in the places of power because they are the boss, basically. Now, there is this another class who are actually the people who are being paid to work, and they are the proletariat, or we call as the laborers. And you can consider them as, of course, basically two different groups: the bourgeoisie, who are the capitalists, and then we have the proletariat, who are the laborers. So Karl Marx also saw that a revolution as a key component to the society. He didn't think that the revolution was a bad thing. He thought that revolution was something that was necessary in order to help keep the balance between the owners and the workers, because by default the owners are the ones with much power. Okay, so why is it that there is this conflict between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat? Of course, guys, if you are the owner, basically what you would want is profit. And of course, if you are the worker, basically you would want a higher salary, okay? But it would be difficult for the bourgeoisie to provide higher salary to the proletariat, because it would mean that it would be taken out from the profit. So it would lessen the profit that it would be getting. But then, as the proletariat, of course, they said, we are working, and we deserve a higher pay from that. And these days, it's not just higher pay. We're also asking for some benefits like health insurance, overtime pay, paid vacation leave, sick leave, and some other benefits. And the conflict actually continues even after now. It's not just during Karl Marx time, it's up to now that the conflict would exist. Okay, or let us put this way: an instructor or a teacher, and then the students. What would the teacher want from the students? Of course, the teacher would always want the students to have high scores and high grades. And then the students, what would they want? It would be want they basically would want to have a higher grades. But then conflict may arise because the student who is wanting of that high grades but is actually giving very low scores to the teacher, then basically what would you expect? Would the teacher be able to give that student a high grade, wherein in fact the student is giving the teacher very small grades? How would the teacher compute that? The teacher is not a magician. The teacher is basically, the secretary, or how would I say that one? The accountant of the students, who is tasked to compute his scores in order to provide the grades that that particular student deserves to have. So what am I saying here, guys? If you would want to have a high score, I mean a high grades, then provide me with your high score so that we will not have any conflict in the future. Okay, so going back. Another perspective from this another particular person who is also very brilliant, and his name is Max Weber. Max Weber contributed a very good viewpoint in this conflict theory. He did a bunch of research looking at the connection with the capitalism and then the growth of Protestantism. He found out that when Protestantism was growing around in Europe, it was capitalism that was also spreading. Okay, so um, when Protestantism was widely spreading in Europe, at the same time capitalism was spreading also. In which places there is Protestantism. Okay, it's actually a kind of religion. No? So he really looked at this idea that cultural influences can be embedded with religions, and this can have an impact on the economic systems. And we have another theorist in the name of White Mills. C. White Mills is actually the founder of modern conflict theory. He saw that this competition between the power elite would rest would rest of the, how would I say this one? C. Wright Mills saw that this competition between the power elite and the rest of the civilization. He said that the power elite are really a small group of people, and they are the owners, actually. They are the They are the politicians of the top position. They are the corporate owners, and they are basically the top generals. And so they composes a very small group, and they are called the power elite. See, right, Neil, so that there was a conflict between the power elite's goals and what was with what was good for the rest of the society. So he really saw that the power elite as a major threat to the freedom of the rest of the society, or the rest of the people living in that part. I mean, being a part of that particular society. So to summarize the social conflict approach, it is basically based on a view that society is a place for conflict based on inequalities, and that there is competition for resources. There is a macro level approach in this particular perspective, because we are looking at it. We're looking at it in a very wide perspective, and in the society. We are looking at it as the society as a whole. So it is really broad. It is a zoom out approach of what society is like, and so you're really we're really far back, no, with the social structures of Karl Marx, which was first to found this viewpoint, and then he argued that economic class was the biggest source of inequality in life, and Max Max Weber added that there's a lot of connections between the capitalism and with the Protestantism, and then um, he he said that we're how did he say that when he said that um, whenever there is religion, there's also a huge development, or there's also a huge difference when it comes to the economy. And lastly, C. Wright Mill said that there is this very small group of powerful elite, and being the powerful top elite, they're occupying a very very dangerous position. What makes it dangerous, it's because it could affect the entire society as a whole. So basically that is the conflict theory. So I hope that you were able to understand the this perspective of conflict theory.